everybody. I am so excited to talk to you about the battle between fear and love. Now, a lot of us have about 3 different reactions to a perceived pain or perceived fear, and that is fight, flight, or freeze. Each one of those 3 things promotes distance. Now, it's a reaction versus a response situation. Those are all 3 reactions. If you look back even to when a baby is born, that type of reaction is built into a person, and we carry it into adulthood. So when that baby is first born, their first reaction is probably they're scared a little bit. They're in an entirely new environment, and so they cry. So when they cry, everybody's right there around them, making sure they're okay, making sure they're healthy, checking their lungs, all that sort of thing, and then they're consoled, So then on into 3-6 months down the road, they've got to cry for everything at this point. They've got to cry for hungry, hurt, tired. They've got to cry for everything. A lot of times moms and dads can hear those different cries, but it's all in an effort to control the environment around them, to bring someone to them, to help them with their needs, And it's not a vindictive thing, obviously, at that age. That's the only way they can communicate, but it continues to grow from that point. And we carry that a lot of times into adulthood. So what we want to look at is, are we reacting in a situation or are we responding in a situation? So the only person that you can control is yourself. On a good day, you are the only person you can control. You can't control other people. And those reactionary things are in an effort to control the environment around you. But what we actually need to do, it talks about it in Romans 12:2. We need to allow the Holy Spirit to transform us by the renewing of our minds. And that's what is going to help us, instead of having that quick reaction to a situation, a quick reaction to a pain or someone offending you. That's going to allow us to actually respond in love. If we look at it, the reaction is actually taking our freedom away from us. We don't have a choice when we just act immediately and react. But when we learn to respond instead in love, that's a choice. We were made for having a choice or having freedom. God designed us that way. So, great example of that is all the way back with Adam and Eve. God created man and put him in the garden, created Eve, and he gave them a choice right up front. How crazy would it have been if God built us to operate in fear? He said, I'll put you in the garden, and you touch anything, I'm going to kill you right here. He didn't say that. He said, I'm giving you a choice. And he wanted that so we could love him, so we could have a relationship with him. That was his greatest desire. That's why he designed us in that way, so we could make a choice. If we couldn't choose that, it wouldn't be love. It wouldn't be love at all. So in many different situations, we operate with fear as the motivator instead of love as the motivator. The problem is, fear and love are natural enemies. Fear comes from the enemy himself. It says in the word that he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. All of those are very fear-driven things. But when you look at love, let's look at 1 John, in fact. 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. I like the way the Message version says it. There is no room for fear in love. That's pretty awesome. So you see, they're natural enemies. Fear is something that creates bondage. You're a slave to that fear. If you're reacting and it's outside of your control, you're a slave to that fear. But when you're responding, not reacting, when you're responding in love, there's freedom. In 2 Corinthians 3:17, it says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, or there is freedom. In 2 Timothy 1:7, it says, God has given us a spirit of fear, or he has not given us, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but one of power, of love, and of a sound mind. So you can see where the Spirit of the Lord is. When we decide to be a Christian and follow Christ, that's where the Spirit of the Lord is. He's inside of us. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. Fear can't survive where there's freedom. Fear can't survive where love is. And we know for the Word, God is love. That's the same Holy Spirit that's inside of us. So when we operate in fear, it creates an atmosphere of fear and a culture of fear around us. So naturally, people react to our reaction in the same way. So it becomes this kind of cycle. And we've got to take some steps. We've got to take some steps to, instead of making a quick reaction out of fear of pain, and we look at that, pain is often past tense. When we're reacting in fear, it may be something that we're just scared is going to happen again. So our past pain creates that fear, but we've got to make a choice to act instead in love. So that's the response. So there's a couple things that we need to commit to ourselves. Number one, seeing as though we're the only person in this world, again, on a good day, that we can control, we're going to do that. We're going to allow the Holy Spirit to operate and work through us in love, and we're going to control ourselves. We're going to control our emotions, because that's what we can do in any given situation. And then we're going to purpose to build and protect that connection or that relationship. So if we're doing something that is not in line with one of those two things, if we're doing something that's not promoting or building that connection with that person, we need to step back and take a look and have a response instead of a reaction. So there's a few things that are going to help us in doing that. First off, we need to communicate love and value consistently. Now that goes back to the first part, the first unit where we were talking about the 5 love languages. We need to know and understand the people around us and how they speak and how they receive love. And we need to communicate in a way that they can understand us. So love and value are both things that a person desires. And if we know how they receive it, we're going to be able to communicate that much more effectively. So then, each display, no matter how big, each display of love or showing how you care or value a person is going to lower that anxiety. It's going to lower that pain and fear in any given situation, and it increases freedom. It allows them, not only you, but it allows them to operate how God designed them as well. It gives them a choice. It gives them freedom to respond instead of react. So we also have to establish a mode of communication that says, I'm going to be able to tell you that this bothers me. And also you're going to be able to respond back to me and say that a given situation bothers you. And we can have that open communication back and forth because we're not operating from fear of a past hurt or a past worry. We're operating knowing a person cares for us, knowing a person values us, because we're speaking the same love language. So a good example of this is when the Holy Spirit kind of prompts our hearts and shows us where we've done something that kind of hurt God and maybe was against His will. And like I said, the Holy Spirit living inside of us is going to show us that. We have a choice at that point to adjust, and that's the last thing that we need to adopt. In this list of things that we're talking about, we need to be able to put our own agenda aside in an effort to show love and value to another person. So it's important to know that you don't have to go in and be right. You can feel the freedom to adjust as you need to with the people around you. So I know it's going to be a great time of discussion in your groups, so dive in.